Now, although the name of my channel is Adam Drives LA, today we're actually in Las Vegas in the beautiful state of Nevada, but we do have a California. That is right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Adam Drives LA, where typically I'm driving the coolest cars on LA's most iconic roads. Now, the reason I've rented this 2010 Ferrari California, which is of course the first year that they were ever produced, is to make a follow-up video based on a point that I made in a review of a 2006 Ferrari F430 that I did about 6 months ago. Now, in that review, I did say that you can own that Ferrari F430 pretty much for free, because the price you're going to pay for the car throughout your ownership is just going to go up and up. Now, 6 months later, that same Ferrari F430 that was worth $100,000 is now worth upwards of $130,000, $140,000. Now, every single Ferrari has gone up in value except for this one. The Ferrari California is still the Ferrari that you can have for between $80,000 and $100,000 based on mileage. Today, we're going to discuss why that is. I'm going to tell you everything I love about this car. I'll tell you everything that I hate about this car. And I'll tell you if I think you should buy one. Now, if you enjoy these kind of videos, do me a favor, scroll down, hit the subscribe button, smash the like button while you're down there. Without any further ado, let's jump right in. Before we get in depth on any aspect of this car, we have to answer the main question, and that is the Ferrari California a true Ferrari? Now, to do that, we have to answer a couple of questions. So first off, does it have a real Ferrari engine? Yes, as you can see, it has a gorgeous 4.3 liter V8. This makes about 450 horsepower and about 357 pound-feet of torque. Revs up to about 8,000 RPM. And a lot of people don't know this, but the Ferrari California was one of the first Ferraris to get the dual clutch system. So a lot of people still think it's going to be that slow shifting single clutch, the F1 clutch that the 2006 Ferrari F430 that I reviewed, that has a little bit of a harsher shift. This shifts a little bit faster, but the car generally is heavier, so you don't get as much of that exhilaration and that balanced kind of pushback that you get with the F430, for example. So yes, it does have a Ferrari engine. Now, does it sound like a Ferrari? As you can see, yes, it absolutely sounds like a Ferrari. Now, a lot of people are ignorant and that they haven't really spent time around this car, so they take assumptions and they assume it's not going to sound like a Ferrari, it's not going to be as fast as a Ferrari. Well, as you saw, it does sound like a Ferrari, and if you want to talk about fast, this does 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds. That is faster than the Ferrari F430. Again, a lot of people who I've talked to that don't know too much about this car just write it off because it's entry level. That is the absolute wrong notion, and we're going to discuss why. But the third and final question is, does it look like a Ferrari? Now, this one's a mixed bag. I'm going to accept a yes and I'll accept a no, because proportionally I know the engine is up front, so you're missing a lot of the Ferrari DNA, but you do still have things like the massive front fenders that gives it that muscular look that we're used to from Ferrari. So you're not totally missing out. Inside, I mean, driving, it still definitely feels like a Ferrari. But again, the main thing is the engine is in front of me. Now, although the engine, if you look at the placement of it, it is behind the front wheels for the most part. That still technically qualifies it as a mid-engine car, but I know what you're thinking. The engine on other Ferraris is behind me, but in this one it's in front of me. So yes, that does change things. You really do sort of miss that Ferrari experience of having the sound, all the rumbling directly behind you, which you get with the F430, the 458, and so on. This one, it's just not something you're going to be able to fix by modifying the car. I mean, the engine is in front of you. You just have to live with that. That's one of the major reasons that the price has stayed so low. Now, while we're talking about the exterior of the car, let me wrap up my thoughts on the overall design of the Ferrari California. So first things first, this is not a true Ferrari color. Underneath, you can see this was a silver Ferrari, but because this has 48,500 miles, probably one of the highest mileage Ferrari Californias in the US, it's just better to sort of preserve the paint and put this wrap so it looks good. The wheels are powder coated, but those are the stock Ferrari California wheels. Now, design wise, I'm going to tell you, here's the worst thing about this car. So every other Ferrari, you look at it and you say it looks like a snake, it looks like a cheetah, it looks like something aggressive. This one sort of looks like a fish, and that's just not a compliment. No Ferrari owner ever wants to hear that their car looks like a fish. I mean, there's no other way to put it, but it does not have that aggressive look because that front end is so long and it's not low because there's an engine in there. This is just what you get. So you want that low price, you got to deal with driving a fish. Now, as you wrap around the side and towards the rear, it does have supercar proportions, but I still can't say it has Ferrari proportions. It just looks very different. And again, in the rear, it looks different, sometimes in a cool way. Look at that stacked exhaust. You don't really get that with other Ferraris. You get something else. And so this one has some cool features. Now, one thing you notice immediately is that rear trunk outline. Look how odd that shape is, how it goes all the way to the bottom of the car. The reason for that is that that's how it opens for the convertible top. Now, speaking of that convertible top, I would love to do this review with the top down, but it is currently 108 degrees in Las Vegas. I already got third-degree burns from touching the tripod. It is an aluminum tripod, so I'm simply not willing to get burnt for this review. Maybe later on at nighttime we will throw the top down because I do have this car for a couple of days. Now let's get into the interior, and you will see it is all Ferrari in here. There's no more of saying, look, it looks entry level. There are some things that stand out as a non-Ferrari. This is not that case. It is a real Ferrari in here. You look at the steering wheel, it's directly out of pretty much any Ferrari from this era. You look into the gauge cluster. I mean, you have your massive RPM gauge right in front of you in yellow, typical Ferrari. You have your speedometer to the right. To the left, you have your engine and oil temperature. That's about it. That's all you need. Of course, you can control a few things in the display, change it up, what it's telling you, but there's really nothing difficult, nothing complicated to get into there. You don't have a massive digital screen. You have that little one to the left. Now, again, speaking of digital screens, let's get to the infotainment system. This is a really dated infotainment system, but it is simple. Now, what you can do, you can open it, and there's, you know, a spot for CDs and for DVDs, which a lot of you might not even know what those are anymore. And when you close it up, you have just a couple of things. There's really not much to do here, which I actually like. I like to keep it simple. A lot of the Ferraris just before this had absolutely no monitor. So considering that this is really the first attempt at it, it's not bad. You still have a USB, you've got navigation that works. So it's, you know, I'm not going to complain about it. I like that it looks clean from a distance, and I'm probably not going to use it much if I own this car anyway. Now, below the monitor, you're going to find the most difficult and complicated climate controls I have ever seen in any car. Now, I always rave about how Audi really found multiple ways. Different models have different layouts of how they have simplified and found ways to integrate this into the most simple, easy to understand, and beautifully designed climate controls in the industry. Ferrari is the exact opposite. They've left it all manual. They've added as many buttons, as many icons as possible. I almost want to put a little shield over it to never look at that. It's hideous, it's overdone, it's overkill, but again, you're gonna have to deal with that, and it's not specific to this car. A lot of Ferraris from this era had that system. Now, below the climate controls, there's this cool little bridge with a couple of important buttons. Underneath it, you have some storage. Now, I like that they kept it very minimal. This is what a Ferrari driver is looking for. They don't need a bunch of stuff in here, but it is missing a cup holder. Now, usually having no cup holder is reserved for, you know, hypercars and things like that you're really going to drive once every couple weeks, once a month. This is very much meant to be almost a daily drivable Ferrari, so I would have liked a cup holder. Maybe it's hidden in here somewhere, but there's no clear cup holder in this car. But check out the rest of the interior, the materials, that leather up on top, which, by the way, you can see this is a 10-11-year-old car, so it is starting to fade and rip up front. This might be what you get with an entry-level Ferrari, but I'm gonna assume that every Ferrari in this era, however expensive they were, are probably gonna have an issue like that once they get to 10 years old, once they have 50,000 miles on them. And just look around. I mean, the seats are Ferrari, the stitching is Ferrari, the vents are Ferrari, the cool little California logo, that emblem, the Ferrari plaque there that says 31 Formula 1 titles. I mean, everything is straight out of a Ferrari. They did not discriminate on this car and cheapen it up as a lot of people think they have. Now, if you notice, I have been yelling in the car because in my experience, loud cars, it really drowns out my voice, and when it comes to editing, then I notice it and it's too late. So I did have to raise my voice because the exhaust in this car is so loud, and it is a stock exhaust the way it comes. But let's talk about how you turn on this car, because it's a little bit different from any other car. So you do have an actual Ferrari key. So first thing you do, you are going to put that in, and then on the steering wheel you do have a engine start button. When you turn it on, you're going to hear it. It starts off extremely loud, nice and high pitch, and then it tones down after a couple of seconds. On the steering wheel, you've got your comfort mode, which is what it's in default. I'm going to switch it to sport. We're not going to go to where it says CST off. That's going to turn off all of your driving aids. It's not my car. I'm not comfortable with it, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be respectful. Let's keep it on sport mode. But again, sport mode is a little bit of that louder exhaust, so we're going to try and do this, but bear with me. Now, although there is no park button anywhere in the car starts in park mode, of course. So when you want to get going, you don't click drive. There's no drive button. All you do is pull the paddle once. You're now in first gear and you're in automatic. Turn that off. You do have to click the auto button. That goes into manual mode. When you are ready to go into park, you either have to turn off the car and it automatically goes into park no matter what gear you're in, or if you pull both paddles at the same time, you go into neutral. Now, believe it or not, the GoPro keeps overheating every 15 minutes because it's 108 degrees. So I have to keep putting it over the climate vents to get it to cool back down and finish up this review. Now that we've talked about the exterior, the interior, the driving experience, let's go back to the main point of this video, and that is, why are the prices so low, and should you or should you not buy one of these? Let's tackle the price first. So let's put this one, which has 48,000 miles, at the low end of the price point for a Ferrari California, which is about $80,000. Now, if you were to buy one of these, I'm going to tell you now, the price is not going to go up. It simply won't. Even though there's a pandemic, even though there's inflation, the price just really won't go up because of a few things. One, this was still an entry-level Ferrari, and people always see it that way. So nobody is really going to spend the money getting close to Ferrari F430 prices for an entry-level Ferrari. Another thing is, because it's entry-level, it was very high volume, so there are plenty of them to go around. There's going to be a very competitive market when it comes to pricing them lower and lower, and they really were driven, so a lot of them do have higher miles, whereas the F430s, the 458s, really kept the miles pretty low. So this is really the everyday Ferrari. They know it's been beaten. They know it's been owned by people who generally don't respect the Ferrari brand as much as others. So the price won't go up. Don't expect that. But the price also will not go down anymore. Now, I think in worst case scenario, you could look at cars like the Lamborghini Gallardo, for example. That was a terrific Lamborghini, still the entry-level Lamborghini that was made, and a higher volume, of course, and it is in a similar price range as this at one point, but because it's mid-engine, it still held its value. Now, if you look at those, when they were at their $80,000 price point, which is just a couple of years ago, even the very high mileage ones, the ones above this, they really never broke below that $75,000, $80,000 price point, because it simply can never be worth almost as much as like an E-Class Mercedes. It still has to stay in that kind of supercar territory. As far as pricing is concerned, this is going to be sort of the rock bottom pricing. You could put 20,000 more miles on this, and I doubt you're going to lose more than $5,000 to $10,000 at max, and that's totally worth it for owning a car like this for a couple of years and only paying as much as someone might pay for a Toyota Camry payment. So why don't more people buy this car? If I'm telling you this is a true Ferrari, if I'm telling you it's fast, it sounds great, it's everything that it should be, why are more people buying it? And that comes down to the main thing, and that is the stigma that's attached to this car. It really falls in the same category as the Porsche Boxster owners and as the Maserati Ghibli owners. It's like the Ferrari for people who can't afford a Ferrari, which is, you know, the Boxster, they say, is for people who want a 911 but they simply can't afford one, or the Ghibli is for someone who wants a true kind of passionate Maserati, but this is what they have as far as a lease deal, so this is what they got. It's sad that these cars suffer from that, because this really is a fantastic car, especially when you consider the price point. I'm sad to see it that way, but really you should see this as an opportunity if you're in the market for a car like this. Now, do I recommend that you buy a Ferrari California? So let's put aside the fact that, you know, you're not going to lose money on the car, generally speaking, and let's put aside the stigma of, you know, it's not a real Ferrari, because if you're watching this review, you're at least giving it the merit and considering either getting the car. You kind of see it in that field of, you know, an entry-level supercar. I really did not think I was going to say this when I started the review, but I absolutely do recommend that you get a Ferrari California for a few reasons. One thing, I mean, having that sound, first of all, if anyone criticizes that it's not a real Ferrari, I'll tell you, this sounds better than many of the brand new Ferraris because they're twin turbo, because they have a hybrid system. This car, actually sitting in it, the rumble, the V8, I mean, these times are going away. You'll see all the prices of these V8 supercars are going up because we're seeing that that's the end of an era. This is still one of them. You're still getting one of those for $80,000, and it's a superb deal. Definitely buy a Ferrari California, take the top down, and enjoy your life. I mean, how are you going to tell me this is not a real Ferrari? I'm looking at the yellow gauge cluster, 8,000 RPMs. Look at that. The power is there. The shifts are instant because of the dual clutch transmission. This is absolutely as real as a Ferrari gets. If you're going to discuss the exterior, that's one thing, but the interior, the driving experience, this really is still a Ferrari. And with all that said, it's going to wrap up yet another video. Thank you so much for watching. I do hope you will consider this and give it the merit of being a true supercar, because I feel bad for the reputation that the car has. It really is a fantastic car. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed these types of quick reviews where I go through the pros and the cons of a car, and then I tell you if I think you should buy one or not, consider subscribing to my channel. Scroll down, smash the like button. Follow me on Instagram. The handle is AdamDrivesLA, just like the name of the channel. I will see you in the next car.